In the dry season, on the limestone shelf west of the river, men would later call the Nile, a crew crouches over a shallow channel cut into the bare rock and watches a thread of water settle to its own level in the shade. The water is doing something their eyes cannot, and everything the engineers mean to raise on this rock will depend on it. It is showing them, to the width of a finger, how far the ground they have chosen sits from flat. There is no spirit level on this site, no sighting scope, nothing that reads a slope by eye. There is only water which cannot lie about level, run into channels cut across the rock and marked where it settles. Before one block of the largest thing anyone has ever built is set, this whole shelf of stone must be cut down to a single true plane. Leveling that base is only the first demand, and they arrive together. They will level a base of 13 acres on sloping desert rock to within about 2 centimeters, while squaring it almost perfectly, while turning its 4 sides to true north, south, east, and west to better than a 15th of a single degree, and they will do it with no compass and with no bright star yet standing over the North Pole to steer by. Then they will raise onto that square something over 2 million blocks of stone and leave rooms hollow inside the mass, rooms the weight itself will try to close. Most people believe the puzzle of the Great Pyramid is how the Egyptians lifted the stones so high. The lifting was the part they had already solved. The problem that could have brought the whole thing down was hollow, the empty rooms buried in the heart of a mountain of stone that wanted to fall into them. This is the story of a mountain built with its rooms left empty. It is the story of how weight becomes the enemy the moment there is a space for it to fall into. It is the story of the men who solved that problem only after getting it wrong twice, and of where their record survives and where it does not. Where they got it wrong first was the most basic choice of all: where to put the room. The first plan put the burial chamber where it was safest, deep underground, cut down into the bedrock beneath the pyramid. Solid rock carries any load placed on it, and a room hollowed out of the plateau itself has nothing above it that can crush it. The builders began that chamber, then left it unfinished in poor, broken rock because the design had changed. The king's chamber was to be lifted up into the body of the pyramid, and the moment they raised it off the bedrock, they took on every problem the bedrock would have solved for them. The next answer was the plain one: raise the room and roof it flat with beams of granite, the strongest stone they had. Granite pressed straight down can carry almost anything, but a flat beam with a mountain stacked on top of it is not pressed straight down. It is bent, and stone that is enormously strong in compression is weak the moment it is bent. Load a flat granite roof with the full column of masonry above it, and the beam reaches the limit of what it can bear in tension. And once it passes that limit, it cracks, and a cracked roof over the chamber is the start of a collapse. One of the real ceiling stones in the finished pyramid did exactly that. So a flat roof would fail on its own, and a single sloping roof, a gable, could throw the weight sideways the way a later age would learn to do with arches. But the true arch, locked by a keystone, was not yet in their hands, and one gable over a room that size still drove far too much weight onto the 2 points where it came down. One gable was not enough. What they built instead had never been built before. Above the flat ceiling of the king's chamber, they left not one hollow space, but 5, stacked one on another, and over the highest, they leaned 2 great beams together into a gable, like the 2 sides of a tent roof braced against each other. The weight of the masonry above no longer falls as one crushing column onto the room. It is caught layer by layer, divided between the stacked chambers, and turned at last by that gable and pushed outward, sideways, into the solid limestone flanking the room, so that it reaches the chamber softened and split rather than whole. here is the turn at the center of the whole design. The weight of the pyramid is the thing that threatens to crush its rooms. It is also the only thing holding the pyramid together. The sloping form drives nearly every stone into pure compression, pressing down and in, which is the one thing stone does best. And the same downward push that endangers the hollow chambers is what locks the mountain into a stable, self-supporting mass. They did not defeat the weight, they arranged it. This was raised under Khufu, second king of the 4th dynasty, some 4,500 years ago, across some 2 decades of work. They held the angle of the faces with no trigonometry at all, using a fixed ratio they called the seked. So many palms of run for every cubit of rise, and the slope never wanders. That same discipline runs all the way down into the mountain, from the whole of it to the single stone the rest of it leans on. Seen whole, the pyramid is something over 2 million blocks of limestone, most of them cut from the plateau within a few hundred paces of where they sit, raised once to about 146 meters. For 3,800 years, nothing built by human hands stood taller. Its base is a square 230 meters on a side, and the 4 sides are matched in length to within a few centimeters of each other. A footprint the size of several city blocks set out almost exactly true. Go inside, and the solid mass opens into a system. A narrow passage climbs steeply into the largest space in the structure, the Grand Gallery, a tall, corbelled corridor where each course of stone is set a little further in than the course below it, 7 times over, stepping the walls inward until they nearly meet high overhead. The gallery is a way up, and it is also a piece of structure, carrying itself without a single arch. It leads to the king's chamber, and to those stacked relieving chambers hidden above it. Look closer at the ceiling of that chamber, and there are 9 beams of granite laid flat across it. Not the pale local limestone of the body, but red granite, quarried at Aswan and brought some 800 kilometers down the river. The heaviest of these beams weigh close to 80 tons apiece, near the weight of a modern railway locomotive, and they were set so evenly that in 4,500 years, only one of the 9 has cracked. Above them, the 5 hollow chambers and the gable share out the weight of everything overhead, which comes to something over 400 tons bearing down toward the room. Why granite hauled so far when limestone lay underfoot? Because in the most heavily loaded part of the structure, they wanted the strongest stone there was, and they cut it with copper. They had no iron, no steel, no powered blade. To cut granite with soft copper, they fed sand beneath the tool, and the hard quartz in the sand did the cutting while the copper only carried it. To move and lift it, they had no crane and no pulley of the sort a modern builder would know, only ramps of rubble, timber levers, wooden sledges, and rope twisted from grass and reed. Now stand at the single most important seam in the whole design, the pair of sloping beams at the very top of the stack, the gable. Everything beneath it hangs on it. If the bed those beams rest on is not cut true, a beam lands on a point instead of along its whole length. Bearing on a point, it cracks. Cracked, it drops its share of the weight onto the chamber below it. And if that lower course is already loaded to its own limit, the failure runs down through the stack, chamber by chamber, until it reaches the flat ceiling of the room, and the mountain finishes the work it had been trying to do all along. The entire hollow heart of the pyramid rides on those 2 leaning stones. Drafting table takes the structures the world stopped looking at closely and sets them back in the moment they were still problems no one had solved, which is where the men come in. The crews who raise these stones, and the marks 2 of their gangs left in a chamber sealed above that ceiling forever. The men who did this were not slaves. That picture comes from Greek writers and later from film, and the ground at Giza tells another story. They were Egyptians, called up in rotation from villages along the river and set to work beside a corps of permanent skilled craftsmen, organized into gangs that carried names, one of them recorded as the Friends of Khufu, and broken into teams of around 40 men. The size of those teams is known because one of them kept a diary. An inspector named Merer logged his crew hauling limestone by boat, and his papyrus survived, forgotten in a cave on the Red Sea coast until it was dug out in 2013, the oldest inscribed papyrus ever found in Egypt. The river set the calendar. When the Nile flooded each year and the fields went under, the water came close enough to the plateau to float the heavy Tura limestone almost to the foot of the site, and the freed farmers came with it. What the work took from their bodies is written in their bones. The skeletons from the workers' cemetery show spines compressed by carried loads, arms and legs broken and then splinted and healed straight, and 2 men whose limb was taken off cleanly, who lived. Most of them were dead by their 30s. They were fed for it in bread and beef and beer, drawn as rations from the stores of the state. Whether that was a fair exchange is not a question the record can answer, because the accounts were kept by the same authority that set the rate. What those men left of themselves is stranger than any wage. In the hidden chambers above the king's chamber, in the only writing found anywhere inside the whole pyramid, the gangs brushed their names in red ochre. They named the gang. They did not name the man. And the most dangerous thing any of them did left no record at all, except in the stone itself, high above that chamber, where the 9 granite beams had to be landed flat with a single try each. Picture one of those beams on the day it goes up. It has been dragged on a sledge up a ramp of packed rubble, 80 tons of granite on timber runners, held by rope and by the men leaning their whole weight against it. Rope stretches, rope frays. If a line lets go on the slope, the beam runs back down the ramp, and it takes the crew behind it, and the stone cut to roof. A king becomes the thing that kills the men who raised it. So the beam moves slowly, and it moves against a clock, because 80 tons cannot hang on rope for long. At the top, it has to come down onto its bed and land along its whole length, flat, not on a corner. The overseer of the works is watching. Every man on the ramp is watching. The beam is levered out over its seat. The packing is knocked clear, and it settles. 8 times out of 9, it settles true. Once, a beam beds badly, and somewhere in the load above it, the granite splits, a crack still visible in the chamber today. And it does not matter. The 5 hollow rooms and the gable take the weight that beam should have carried, and the ceiling holds. It is held for 4,500 years. No one writes down the day. There is no ceremony for sealing a room that no one will ever enter. The overseer marks it done. The gang is already moving to the next course of stone, and the men who set the most dangerous stone in the structure are walled in behind it as the mountain climbs past them. The form that made it stand was also the reason it was never built this large again. A pyramid says exactly where the treasure lies, and within a few centuries, Egypt's kings gave up the giant marker and cut their tombs into hidden rock in a far valley, choosing to vanish rather than to tower. One idea inside the pyramids outlasted their shape, the trick of leaving a gap above a weak point so the load steps around it rather than onto it. More than 1,000 years later, at Mycenae in Greece, builders set a hollowed triangle into the wall above the lintel of their great gate to lift the weight off the beam. It is the same move made over the king's chamber, shrunk to a doorway. Go there now, and you can walk it. You climb a low passage, bent double, rise into the grand gallery with its corbelled walls stepping inward overhead, and come out into a bare red granite room, cool and plain and silent. Somewhere over you, unseen, 5 empty chambers and 2 leaning stones still hold back the weight of 100 meters of masonry, and every beam above your head was floated 800 kilometers and lifted into place with rope and packed earth by men who never saw it finished. When people picture what the ancient world could do, this is the shape they picture. And the reason is not nostalgia. It stood as the tallest structure on Earth for longer than all of recorded history since, because its builders learned to turn a mountain's own weight into the thing that holds it up. They signed their gangs in ochre, in a room sealed away from every eye. Their own names are lost, and the work still earns its recognition 4,500 years on. Not a tomb piled up by slaves, not a riddle without an answer, but a mountain built hollow and engineered to hold itself up, standing true to the width of a finger, 4,500 years after the men who raised it were sealed outside it.